Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Carrie. This movie tells the story of a lonely and painfully shy teenage girl with telekinetic powers, who is slowly pushed to the edge of insanity by frequent bullying from both her classmates and her domineering religious mother. Will she withstand the harassment of her classmates, or will she use her telekinetic powers to fight back? Hold on, before we start recapping the film, we want to thank Manscaped.com, the global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products, for sponsoring this video. This is a call for men. It's time for you to take care of yourself, starting from the most private area. Manscaped offers the best tools and liquid formulations for the big three odor zones: your body, butt, and balls. Manscaped definitely hooked me up with a bunch of stuff from their all-in-one Performance Package 4.0. Let me tell you more. In the Performance Package 4.0 kit, you will get the Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer. This is Manscaped's 4th generation electric, a waterproof trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology which reduces nicks and cuts on the body's most sensitive regions. Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer has a super smart, cordless charging system, and these little LED lights on the front show you how long you can use it. It's up to 90 minutes of use with a full charge. For your safety, just tap the button on the front 3 times and it enables the travel lock feature, so it can be carried traveling safely. Apart from the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, you will also find 2 more products I never knew I needed until now. Yes, it's the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray. To use it, simply apply the Crop Preserver after your shower for all-day body odor protection. The Crop Reviver is a convenient spritz with cooling aloe vera to quickly refresh the area whenever you need it. All I can say is Manscaped really has you covered from head to toe. This is their Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. It's a wireless nose trimmer with the same skin-safe technology as the groin trimmer, so you don't have to worry about tugging or cutting on those sensitive nose hairs. For a limited time, you get all this plus 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs. So get the offer now. Go to manscaped.com today and get 20% off plus free international shipping and 2 free gifts when you use promo code RECAPKING at checkout. Manscaped, always use the right tools for the job. Carrie is a shy and quiet high school girl who is constantly bullied by her schoolmates. One day, when she and her classmates are taking a shower after PE lessons, Carrie finds blood dripping down her leg. She panicked, thinking she was bleeding and was going to die. She didn't know that she had just had her first period. One of her classmates, who was in the toilet next door, peeked at Carrie, then told all her classmates. As a result, all of her classmates mocked and laughed at Carrie's innocence. Carrie started to cry. Her body was shaking with panic and fear. Instead of stopping, Carrie's bullying intensified. Her classmates even hit Carrie's cubicle, throwing tampons and pads into it. Not long after, Ms. Rita Desjardins, the PE teacher, came to stop the chaos. Seeing Carrie still panicking, Ms. Desjardins slapped her to calm her down. At the same time, a light bulb in the room exploded. Ms. Desjardins then reported the incident to Principal Morton. Morton allows Carrie to leave school early. The table in front of Morton strangely moved on its own as Carrie left the principal's office. Even though the principal knew about it, Carrie's bullying continued. When Carrie opened her locker, a pile of tampons fell to the floor. All the students who were in the school hallway immediately laughed at her. As usual, Carrie just looked down without being able to retaliate against her bullies. On the way home, she was still teased by one of her classmates. As the boy taunts her, Carrie looks at her classmate and instantly the boy bounces off his bike. In this moment, Carrie begins to realize the power within her. Arriving home, Carrie saw her mother, Margaret White, praying. Carrie immediately asked why Margaret had never explained to her about menstruation. Margaret is a very religious woman. However, a tragedy occurred in the past, where she became pregnant out of wedlock, so she considered menstruation as a sin. Knowing her daughter was menstruating, Margaret immediately dragged Carrie to a room located in the attic of their house. She then locked it from the outside, so Carrie could pray fervently in the room. However, instead of praying, Carrie was engrossed in reading a magazine. When Margaret opened the bedroom door, Carrie immediately pretended to pray. A few days later, at school, Ms. Desjardins came to all the students who were bullying Carrie. She threw the hundreds of tampons she'd taken from Carrie's locker at them. As punishment, Ms. Desjardins forbade them to come to the prom night, which will be held for the next 5 days. Hearing this, a student named Hargenson became very upset. Meanwhile, another student, Sue, also received the punishment. In the school library, Carrie is looking for information about the miracles, which is telekinesis, where the hidden power of the mind can become the power of humans. Back in class, Carrie is again bullied, teased, and laughed at by Chris and her friends. It made her body tremble with anger. She also focused on remembering the times she was abused. She then saw the iron ruler on her desk bent, while the table in front of her cracked and split in two. The day went by. Chris' parents came to the school and met Principal Morton and Ms. Desjardins. Chris' father, who is a lawyer, will sue Desjardins' treatment of Chris and threaten to take this case to court. Principal Morton is undaunted. Instead, he threatens back and will take Chris to court because of the bullying she did to Carrie. Knowing the real problem, Chris' father became embarrassed and left the room. Among the girls who bullied Carrie were Chris and Sue. However, the seeds of conflict have been present between the two. Sue didn't want to bully Carrie anymore. She refused when Chris asked her to do it. Sue even asked her boyfriend, Tommy Ross, to take Carrie to prom night because Sue couldn't attend the event. At first, Tommy refused. However, Sue continues to reassure Tommy because Sue can see that Carrie seems to like Tommy. The next day, Carrie is practicing her telekinesis skills in the library when Tommy arrives to take Carrie to prom night. Carrie immediately packed her things and left Tommy. Carrie thought she would be framed by Tommy's sweet words. However, Tommy intercepts Carrie. He kept reassuring Carrie that he was serious about taking her to prom night. The innocent Carrie finally accepted Tommy's invitation with a smile growing on her lips. Over dinner at her house, Carrie asks Margaret if she can attend prom night. Margaret firmly refused, because going to prom night is a sin. Margaret's refusal seemed to stir Carrie's anger. She also uses her telekinesis ability, making the dining table suddenly crash against the wall. Seeing the miracle, Margaret was immediately shocked and frightened. Prom night is getting closer. Several students who are the committee are now busy decorating the room. Students who often bullied Carrie, such as Chris and Tina, also participated. Then, Tina walked up to Chris and showed her the guest list. As it turned out, Tommy and Carrie were nominated as candidates for prom night king and queen. Seeing that, Chris gets a sinister idea to ruin Carrie's prom night. At home, Carrie is busy sewing her own ball gown. After the dress was finished, she put it on and showed it to Margaret. Seeing the slightly open dress, Margaret asked Carrie to take it off. Wearing revealing dresses is a sin. However, hearing Margaret keep warning her of her sins, Carrie is disgusted. She used her telekinesis ability to get Margaret out of the room. Not long after, Tommy came to pick up Carrie. Carrie then opened the door and was very surprised to see a limousine parked in front of her house. Then Tommy opened the limousine door to let Carrie inside. After that, the two of them went to the building where the prom night was being held. The location of the event was filled with lots of students who came in pairs. Carrie was nervous about being in a crowd, and she hesitated to get out of the car. However, Tommy assures Carrie not to worry. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Chris and his boyfriend, Billy, watched Carrie and Tommy from a distance. When Carrie and Tommy got out of the car, people's attention immediately turned to the two of them. They sat down at one of the tables in the prom night room. Later, Ms. Desjardins came up to Carrie and complimented her on her performance. She asked Tommy to dance with Carrie. However, when Tommy asks Carrie to dance, the girl refuses. It was only when Tommy repeated his invitation that Carrie agreed to dance with Tommy. Carrie also thanks Tommy for taking her to prom night. While on stage, Chris and Billy secretly prepare their act to embarrass Carrie. They put a bucket filled with pig's blood right on the stage. The climax of the event finally arrived, and the audience was asked to vote to choose the king and queen of the prom night. While filling out the voting paper, Tommy asks Carrie to vote for themselves to win the event. Not long after, the contest winner was announced, in which Tommy and Carrie were crowned the winners of the king and queen of the prom night. Carrie was amazed when her name was announced as the winner. They were also asked to go up on stage and the audience cheered their victory. In fact, Carrie's victory had been arranged by Chris and her friends. After Tommy and Carrie are crowned with victory, Carrie sees drops of blood falling on her palms. She looked up, and that's when Chris spilled the pig's blood that ran all over Carrie's body. Everyone in the room gasped. None of them expected to see such a gruesome sight on prom night. Things got even more chaotic when the bucket on the stage fell on Tommy's head. He fell and fainted for a moment. Seeing what happened to Carrie and Tommy, Chris and her friends couldn't help but laugh, and their reactions were followed by the audience. Holding back her anger, Carrie accidentally uses her telekinesis ability to attack all of those present at the prom that night. She closed and locked the door to prevent people from leaving the building. She began to ravage the room, causing everyone to flee in panic. Even a fire started to appear in the building and the water line suddenly burst and flooded the ballroom. After that, using her telekinesis, Carrie made the water surrounding her hit the people in the vicinity of the stage, electrocuting them instantly. Carrie then moves out of the building. From the outside, the roof of the building began to collapse due to the fire. Sue, who lives not far from the school, saw the prom night building on fire. She rushed there. However, her action was blocked by the police who had blocked the road. She could only see the fire that burned the building from near the gas station. Suddenly, the electricity at the gas station went out. Then the electric shock made the gas station pipe leak. Sue, who saw this, immediately ran away and returned to her car. In her car, Sue saw the shadow of a girl, Carrie, walking past the gas station. Sue tells Carrie to warn her to stay away from the gas station. A moment later, an explosion occurred as Carrie passed the gas station. Carrie continues to destroy everything nearby. The parked car is overturned as Carrie crossed the street. Billy and Chris apparently managed to escape in a car before the prom night building was engulfed in flames. Arriving on a deserted highway, they saw Carrie walking alone in the middle of the road. Billy drove his car very fast to hit Carrie. But suddenly, the car stopped even though Billy did not hit the brakes. Instantly the car bounced, then flew up and hit a power pole. The accident killed them both. When Carrie got home, she went straight to the bathroom and soaked herself in the bathtub. Margaret, who saw Carrie's return, then approached her. Next to the bathtub, Margaret stroked Carrie's hair before she attempted to drown Carrie in the bath. However, Margaret's attempt failed. With her telekinesis power, Carrie made Margaret's heart stop beating. Margaret was killed, while Carrie's body still seemed to sink in the bottom of the bathtub. A moment later, Sue comes to Carrie's house and finds Carrie drowned in the bathtub. Then Sue pulled Carrie out of the bath and gave her artificial respiration. Her efforts were successful. Although, when she came to her senses, Carrie looked confused. She asked Sue what had happened and what she had done. Elsewhere, Ms. Desjardins was interrogated by the police. She told what really happened on prom night. However, the police did not believe Ms. Desjardins, who said that Carrie had supernatural powers. Finally, the police concluded that the fire was an accident because it was very difficult to find accurate evidence if Carrie was the mastermind of the incident. At the end of the film, Carrie and Sue visit a grave of Margaret and Carrie's graves, which are located next to each other. Carrie turns out to be faking her death to not be found by the police. She also wore a wig to not be recognized. After laying the wreath, Sue asked Carrie to leave the city as far as possible. Several people survived the fire, and they might have recognized Carrie if she still lived there. Sue also took the initiative to take Carrie as far as possible before returning home. That same night, Sue immediately drove Carrie to the Florida border. The film ends. The message from this film is that an inner wound, even though it is never seen, will remain for a lifetime. Bullying is unacceptable. In addition to inflicting deep wounds on the victim, it will cause prolonged trauma. Differences in a person are not a reason to be ridiculed. Doing good and doing evil is just as easy. It all depends on us, because in life there is an option whether we choose to be good or bad, where the choices we make will have consequences.